Welcome back. Now we will be going ahead and configuring the scenario in the integration directory. And before we do that, let's just understand what is all that we need to do in the integration directory. As we saw previously, there are three distinct flows that this CC-BPM kind flow has. Your sender file adapter picks up the file, it sends it to PI, and then PI delivers the message to the BPM. In the BPM, as we saw, the receive step, let me just parallelly also open the BPM. Okay. So what we saw, this BPM, let's zoom in a little. All right. So the first flow that we see is the one that will deliver the message to the receive step here, right? A sender file adapter picks up the file, it sends it to PI, and then PI will deliver it to the BPM, and in the BPM, the receive step will receive this message. The next step is in the BPM, there's a send synchronous message step that makes the call to SAP, and that is equivalent to the next flow, where your BPM is triggering the synchronous call to PI, and PI in turn makes it to the ECC using a receiver RFC adapter. All right, so then BPM gets the response back, and that is our send synchronous step. The next step in your BPM is it sends the file response, and this is where BPM is the sending system, where it sends the file response and it gets delivered to PI. All right, so basically there are three distinct flows that we need to build in the integration directory, and those three flows are the first flow, where you will have a file adapter, a sender file adapter, and that sender file adapter will have an equivalent sender agreement, right? Then you will have a receiver determination, and in the receiver determination, you will be using the BPM as a receiver determination, and I will show you how. And then you will also have an interface determination. Remember, any configuration in PI has four objects: sender agreement, receiver determination, interface determination, and receiver agreement. All right. So you will define a sender agreement because your file system is sending the file. You will define a receiver determination where the receiver is BPM, and you will define an interface determination. You will not define any receiver agreement for a BPM. So when you're dealing with a BPM, when BPM is a receiving system, you do not need a receiver agreement. When BPM is a sending system, you do not need a sender agreement. So for BPMs, you do not need a communication channel, or you don't need a sender agreement and a receiver agreement. So in this case, for the first flow, you will define a sender adapter, you will define a sender agreement, you will define a receiver determination, and you will define an interface determination. All right. So let's get started on that. So let's go into my folders. I'm in my integration directory. I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it file RFC file. I'll call it CC-BPM underscore file RFC file underscore 00. Okay. So the first step I'm going to create is a sender file adapter, right? So I'm going to go into my thing, go into new, say communication component. I'm going to call it training underscore file system BS underscore file system underscore 00, and I'm calling it the sender channel as CC-BPM underscore file RFC file underscore sender. All right. Now I'm going to go into my adapter type and select as file, the sender, and give the directory. So let me get my directory. I'm going to call my file as file RFC file.xml. All right. Next, processing. I'm going to set the processing to delete mode. All right. With that, my first step is done. I've created a sender file adapter. Next, we will be creating a sender agreement, right? So let's go into sender agreement and select our sender service interface. My service interface is SIOA okay, here we go. SIOA file request underscore C00, because that is my CC-BPM scenario. I select that. So this is my sender service interface, outbound asynchronous, and I select my communication channel. Okay. Before we create the sender agreement, there's one step that I would recommend we do. Okay. So we've created the sender communication channel. Let's go ahead and say new. And here you see something called process component, right? Let's select the process component. Okay. Okay. So let's call it the same name as our CCBPM. What is the name of our CCBPM? It is IP file RFC file. So the recommendation is let it follow the same name. So whatever the name of our CCBPM, I'm using the same name, and it is asking what is the associated. So let me do it one more time. Right click, new, say process component. In the collaboration profile, select process component, give it a name, IP file RFC file, and it's going to ask the associated enterprise service data. There seems to be some problem. Let me quickly check that and come back. I'm sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that. There was a minor confusion. What I told you to do is right click and create an object of type process component. That is actually wrong. So my bad about that. So the first thing that you would need to do is go to tools at the menu at the top, go to tools, and down here you will see new integration process. So go to tools, new integration process. And now it's going to say, hey, do you want to import an integration process from the enterprise service repository to the integration directory? Yes. So continue. And now select your integration process, right? So I'm going to just expand this guy a little, or let's use the help. So our name, our BPM is called IP file RFC file underscore. No, not this. Let's see if I can expand. There seems to be a problem. Previously we could expand that. Okay, perfect. All right. Now I'm going to expand it bottom as well. All right. So now let's search by a software component. Let's sort by software component. My software component is Z training PI sound, and this is the name of my BPM. IP file RFC file underscore 00. It's asking which folder do you want to assign it to. So let's go ahead and select our folder. Okay. I'm going into training. So let me do this one more time. Cancel. Go to tools. Go to new integration process. Say continue. Now I'm just going to expand this a little. Sort by software component version. So I can go all the way to the bottom because I know it starts with a Z, and say IP file RFC file 00, which is the name of my software, and I'll assign it to a folder. So I'm going to go down, select my folder training 00 PQRS. Oh, here we go, training 00, and I'll assign it to my folder, and then say continue. It's going to ask a name. I'll let it be the same name and say finish. All right, don't change anything in the screen and say finish. Perfect. And now your CCBPM has been imported. So this is our CCBPM that has been imported into the integration directory. Now we've defined a sender file adapter. So let's go ahead and create a sender agreement. So I'm going to say SIOA. Sorry, I don't remember the name, so use the selection help. Sorry, we'll define a sender agreement, right? So I have to go into sender agreement, use the selection help, and here I should see file request, right? CCBPM, file RFC file scenario, file request. Select that to do your sender agreement and say create. And now select my sender file adapter. So CCBPM, file RFC file sender adapter, save. Excellent. My sender agreement is created. Now let's go ahead and create a receiver determination. So I'm going to right click new, selecting receiver determination. I've selected my outbound asynchronous service interface and my namespace, and I say new. What is the receiver component going to be? The receiver component is our BPM, so which we have imported here. So now if I scroll down, or let's just search for IP underscore, let's just search for it, right? You see this new icon, type BPM, just select it. So you select your CC BPM, which we just imported, select that and tell that this is the receiver. So like we told, a BPM acts in your integration directory configuration. It acts like a sending system or as a receiving system. So your receiver determination tells that the files that your sender message is received, and it is now going to be delivered to your BPM. So now let's go into the configuration overview, and within the configuration overview, it's asking me for an interface determination. So right click, say new specific. Let's create our interface determination. There's no operation mapping. So what is the name of our service interface? It's SIAA file request, correct? Exactly. So select it, say apply, and then save. So your interface determination has also been created. Now if I go back, I refresh, I should see my interface determination visible here. Okay, like we mentioned, for a CC BPM scenario, there is no need for a receiver agreement. When a BPM is a sending system, is a receiving system, there is no need for a receiver agreement or a receiver channel. And when a BPM is a sending system, likewise no need for a sender channel and a sender agreement. So we will leave the receiver agreement blank. All right. So the first flow is done. The first flow is done where we have taken a file and we have delivered it to the BPM. What is the next flow? The next flow is where the BPM is sending the message, and it's a synchronous message to the ECC system, that is a BAPI. And like we looked at for the receiver BPM, for a BPM, when the BPM is a sender, no sender agreement is required when the BPM acts as a sender, and there's no need for a sender channel. All right. So let's go ahead. So in this case, because the BPM is the sender, there's no need for a sender agreement, which means we will go ahead and create a receiver determination, right? So in my receiver determination, I will say that my sender is IP file RFC file. I select this and I'm making a synchronous call to the BAPI, right? So I'm selecting SIAS BAPI user get details. Once I select this, I say create. So what does this receiver determination tell us? BPM is the sending system. It's making a synchronous, abstract synchronous call to the BAPI. So the receiving system is going to be EH5 client 800, right? My ECC system, right? Now let's go ahead to my ECC system, and here I'm going to create a new interface determination. So I'm selecting new specific, I'm selecting my operation mapping, and my interface determination is selected. All right. The next step, I'm going to refresh. And I'm going to create a receiver agreement. Now remember, we have already created an RFC receiver channel, and to show you the concept of reusability, we are not creating a new RFC receiver channel, but we will use the existing RFC receiver channel that we built in our SOAP to RFC scenario. All receiver channels are reusable. They can be used multiple times in multiple scenarios. So I'm reusing my SOAP to RFC receiver channel, and I'm saving my object. So with this, the next scenario is also built where the BPM is sending the message to ECC, right? The third scenario that we are going to build is BPM is sending the message to the file system, which means I now need a file receiver channel, right? So I'm going to go into this. I'm saying BS file system 00, and I'm creating a new communication channel, file CC underscore CC BPM underscore file RFC file underscore file underscore receiver, right? It's a receiver channel. In here, I'm selecting the adapter type as file, and the direction is adapter type as file, and the adapter type as receiver. I'm going to give the path. I'm going to select this. I'm going to say CC BPM / file RFC file. Here I'll say file response dot underscore dot XML. Okay, I'm giving the file name as a response. I've given a directory where my file is going to get created. I'm saying add timestamp, and my receiver file adapter is now created, right? Next, what are we going to do, right? Let's go ahead and create a receiver determination, right? What is our sending system? IP file RFC file. My BPM is the sender. My file response abstract asynchronous is the sending interface. I say create, right? Who's the receiver of this message? It is my file system. So I'm going to say BS file system underscore 00. You can also use the selection help and say save, right? Now I go to the configuration overview tab. Within my configuration overview tab, I see the file response. Now I'm going to go ahead and say new specific for the interface determination. There's no mapping required, so I'm just selecting. So because there's no mapping required, if I select the operation mapping, it would say no mapping found. So you can also use a direct interface here, and the interface is going to be SIIA file response for CCBPM file RFC file, and save it, save the object. Now let's go here. If you see here, the sender agreement is blank because the BPM is a sending system, the sender agreement is blank. And because the file system is the receiving system, we need to create a receiver agreement. I say new specific, and I will select my CCBPM file RFC file receiver, apply, save. All right, with that, our configuration is done, and I'm going to activate my change list. Now let's do one more thing. Let's organize our changes. So I'm going to create a folder. All right, I'm saying folder. Before we do that, let's go ahead first activate our changes. Let the change get activated. Okay, awesome. The changes have been activated. Now let's go into objects. I'm just going to organize this a little more. I'm going to create a subfolder that says, and say create. I'll say this is file request _to_ CCBPM. All right. Let's move all the relevant objects. So this is a sender file channel that moves here. Okay. This is my receiver determination that moves here. This is my interface determination that moves here. There's no receiver agreement relevant to this, but I need to have a sender agreement. So I'm moving my sender agreement here. All right. Next, let's create one more channel folder create CCBPM _to_ BAPI _sync call, right? CCBPM is making a BAPI call, right? So now this is the CCBPM is a sending system. So this is the receiver determination. Then we have CCBPM as the sending system. This is the interface determination. And then you see this is the receiver agreement, right? There's no sender agreement here because CCBPM is the sending system. Next, we are going to create the last folder, CCBPM response _to_ file response, right? I just want to move it also, all the remaining objects, all the 4 remaining objects will go into this particular folder. All right, with this, our objects are a little more better organized, so you can read it very easily. So let's activate the changes, and then I can explain it one more time, and then we will test our scenario. Okay, excellent. Now let's look at the first thing, file request to CCBPM. This is our sender file adapter, and that is associated with a sender agreement and our sender agreement. Then we have a receiver determination that has an interface determination, but there is no receiver agreement because the BPM is our receiver. So if I go here, you can see the BPM is the receiver, and you don't see that as a receiver agreement. Next, CCBPM is making a synchronous call, and because the CCBPM is the sending system, this is our CCBPM, this is an abstract synchronous, and then you have an interface, sorry, let's refresh. Yeah, perfect. So your CCBPM is the sending system, this is an abstract synchronous, and out here you have an interface determination and a receiver, and the receiver is EH5CLNT 800. Next, you have CCBPM sending the response to the file response. So CCBPM is the sending system, and because CCBPM is the sender, you do not have any sender agreement accordingly. All right, let's go back. I go here. You don't have a sender agreement. You have a receiver determination. You have an interface determination, and you have a receiver agreement. Okay, so with this, let's go ahead and test our scenario. All right, so to test our scenario, what are we going to do? We are going to create our input file. So I'm going to my message mapping. This is my file request. All right, I'm going to call it my user ID as admin, right? I'm taking this request XML which contains the user ID and saving it in my notepad and saying file rfc file.xml. Now I'm going to my my CG3, sorry, CG3Z. And here I'm going to upload my file, right? I'm going to upload my file. How? This is my file. I'm going to go here. I'm calling it file rfc file.xml, and on the target application server it's going to go into, all right, I have the path here, my CG3Z. Sorry, I made a mistake. Let's go back to CG3Z. This is going to be on my back end. Now I'm going to my front end. All right, I'm going to upload my file. Upload, perfect. Now let's go into my communication channel monitoring to make sure that the file is getting picked up by my sender channel. And what is my sender channel? File request to CC BPM. This is the name of my sender channel. So I'm going into adapter engine. I'm going to communication channel monitor, and within that communication channel monitor, let it load. I'm giving my channel name. Okay, I'm going to stop my channel. I'm going to start my channel. When I say go, my file has been picked up. So now I'm going to sxmb_moni, monitor for processed XML messages, and execute. All right, excellent, everything successful. Now we'll see what are these messages, right? So first message at 14:48:07. This is the request that came in. Okay, from the, if you look at it, this is the request from the sender file adapter, and the receiver is the CC BPM. So let's click on it and have a look at it, and you see this is the input message, that is the admin message, right? Then the CC BPM made a request synchronous call, abstract synchronous call to EH5 client 800, right? And because it is a synchronous call, if you see the inbound message first, main document, display content. So this is the request message, and then we had a mapping. The mapping got executed, technical routing, payload, output, and now you see this was the request. This is the response. This is the mapping, and then I click on the response message, and I can see that the response is successful with the username and personal number. So now if I go into display content in window 1, this was my entire request, and here you see this is the request response from SAP, right? And this is the response message, and then finally the BPM IP, if you see the sender component, it's BPM, and it has sent the file response out, and you got the message into your file system. Okay, now we'll go into AL11, sorry, and just see the file. So CC BPM file RFC file, this is my file response, and it's perfectly come here, right? So I go back. Excellent. So now how do I, is there a way where I can monitor all of this together, right? You can. So now if you drag a little to the right, you will see this screen called PE, right? So far you've seen AE stands for adapter engine, IE stands for integration engine. What does PE stand? PE stands for business process engine, which is basically process engine. So click on PE, and when you click on PE, you will see this. Okay, you will see the entire workflow, and now come here into the workflow log and say list with technical details. And when you click on list with technical details, you'll be able to see what are the various steps that got executed and what was the step type, right? So I can click here and I can see, hey, what happened, what is the container, you know, what was the message that came in, and if you see the message sent, okay, we'll look at that later. So I can come back. You could also see, sorry, click on PE again. When you click on PE, you can also click on this graphic. Sorry, I'll go back. click on this graphic button, right? And now when you see the graphic, you'll be able to see, let's let it load, what happened, right? The start message got executed, you made a synchronous call, you made a file response, and the workflow got executed. And here you can always click on the object and see the XML messages and see the entire XML message that came in and went out. All right. So this is the beauty of PI, where from your monitoring in SXMB Moni, you can always drill down and see the entire process execution within the BPM. So then again, when you click on this, it's saying this is the service call. All right. Okay, excellent. My service calls were done. Okay, so with this, we've come to end with our first CC-BPM scenario, where we built a file RFC file scenario and executed that file RFC file scenario.